Welcome to The Real Story with Jeannie Ives. On the phone with me is a familiar voice. It's Colonel Roman Golash. And we're having Roman on today because, of course, he's our expert when it comes to the Ukraine and what's been going on there. And that has been such an alarming story in the just the last 10 days, especially with the leaks that have come out about how well the war is going. So Roman and I are going to have a full conversation about Ukraine. And again, Roman is in constant contact with his relatives in Ukraine. So we're going to get nearly a firsthand look at their perspective about how the war is going. And we'll go through some of the information that we received, but more importantly, towards the end of the interview, we are going to talk about this leak. How is it that an E3 has the capability to view and download and then put out such classified information that was really meant for Mark Milley, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff? So it's alarming to us. We both served in the military, and I personally am just shocked at the level of malfeasance from our superior, from people running the military and the intelligence services to allow such a leak to come about. But let's get straight to the war, because it is very concerning. It's been going on now for over a year. We've been following it, and certainly Roman has been following it because he has relatives suffering through the war, and he was always an advocate from the get-go that we need to fight it decisively at the beginning, and that is not what happened. We did not give them decisive weapons to win from the beginning. We slow-walked all of our support, and now we're at the point where it's a little bit of a stalemate. And in fact, that's what was reported today in the Wall Street Journal in their lead article, Russia Intensifies Eastern Ukraine Strikes. But down halfway into this article, it says the front lines have remained relatively static in recent months, with Russia advancing into the center of the eastern city of Bakhmut, a focal point of the war since last summer. So, from your perspective, Colonel Golash, where does it stand? Is it at a stalemate? Is it static? Or what do you see is going to happen here in the next few weeks?
Well, Jeannie, thank you for having me talk to you again. And the news is not only from the family, but family members who are on the front. And the issue is that during the winter, there hasn't been that much fighting. Now in the spring, we have concerns about mud. And also the Ukrainians have been waiting for more weapons, tanks, artillery shells, and bullets that have not been forthcoming as much as they have been. So the news is not as dire as some of the recent reports have been coming out. It is a static situation. It is a bit like trench warfare of World War I. But the Ukrainians are not letting up. The Russians have not been able to take Bakhmut after a year. And the Ukrainians are slowly going back, but they're doing an organized withdrawal, I believe, in order to get the Russian troops to concentrated. The positive news is that Wagner Group, which is a fascist Russian group that Putin has, they started out with about 60,000 troops in the Bakhmut area. And Prigozhin himself said that they've been decimated. They're down to 5,000. So there has been a lot of losses on the Russian side. And I think right now, as the news is reporting, Ukrainians are gearing up for the spring offensive. Where that's going to be, no one knows. I think you can look on the map. Could be Bakhmut. It could be Kherson, trying to cut off Crimea. It could be somewhere else. The other danger, of course, is there's always a threat from Belarus onto the capital of Ukraine. So they have concern about that as well.
Sure. So Belarus, obviously very friendly to Putin and Russia, tightly associated with the two. You think that, and before they have obviously let the Russians come in through their territory to attack from the north. Do you think that it gets to the point where they actually put their own forces into action?
Well, that's a very good question. The information I'm getting from Ukraine is that Lukashenko is still tight with Putin, but the populace is very much against Lukashenko. So they've tolerated Russian troops to come on, but there are inklings that there's a Belarusian partisan effort trying to undermine Lukashenko. So where that goes, I'm not sure, but I think the trigger point will be if Lukashenko sends Belarusian troops into Ukraine. The other information coming out is that Belarusian troops will not fight Ukrainians. So we'll see, how that happens, what develops.
Well, on another front, that same Wall Street Journal article went on to say that Germany on Thursday approved Poland's request to send more MiG-29 jet fighters, which used to belong to the former East Germany, to Ukraine. So that's got to be good news.
Yes.
I mean, air power matters in all these wars.
Mm-hmm. Well, not only do the MiG-29s matter, I mean, there was some information on retired F-16 American pilots that said that they're ready to go to help Ukraine, even fly F-16s in Ukraine. And so there's a group of Air Force veterans that are ready to join the foreign Ukrainian Legion there in the Air Force to help them fight the war with F-16s. But then the problem is, where do you get the F-16s to fly them?
Well, that's a huge problem, right? You can have all the pilots you want, but if they don't have planes. And so I also read a previous report that literally they were running out of anti-aircraft ammunition to fight off any of the Russian assets. And I mean, air superiority is critical to any sort of war effort.
Well, it is very critical, and it's amazing how in the beginning of the war, Ukrainians were asking for a no-fly zone.
Yes.
And the West would not provide it because they didn't want to provoke Putin. So the Ukrainians used innovative techniques in which they would ambush Russian planes in Ukrainian airspace and shoot them down to the point where, Russian pilots don't want to fly in there. So they don't have air dominance. Now, the current problem is if they are short of rockets to shoot down the planes, that may be a problem. And also current information came out because of the leaks, said the Russians were able to jam some of the bombs that they were sending over to the Russian position. So I'm not sure where that's going to go.
Well, things are definitely heating up over there. How are the people handling it, though, from a personal perspective? What's going on there? I know that there's a further discussion about whether or not Russia threatened to pull out of a deal that allows the export of grain from Ukrainian ports on the Black Sea after May 18th, unless progress is made in solving what is called 5 systemic problems. This is again from that Wall Street Journal article, which I found that to have the most concise information. But so what's going on? I mean, they've got grain stashed. They need to sell that grain in order to provide other provisions for their people. You're going to be getting into, at the same time, you've got a spring offensive going on. You're going to be hitting up against planting season. Can you tell us anything more from your contacts over there about how the people are handling war after a year of war, a devastation?
It is
destruction,
it is.
Cities bombed out.
Always, yes.
We don't understand that because, I mean, other than the 9/11 attack on New York City, we can't understand in Pearl Harbor.
Right.
But yet that was not, it wasn't whole-scale bombing of major parts of our country.
It's a very good point. I've talked to the family and extended family and friends in Ukraine, Western Ukraine, and their resolve is 100%. I mean, they're not going to be giving up anytime, any soon, because they understand the Russian mentality much better than we do. We here think, well, Putin is bad, but he's a benevolent dictator. The Ukrainians know better. And Putin himself said that if he takes over Ukraine, all the Ukrainian civilians will go into concentration camps to be annihilated. So he's talking about exterminating a whole nation of people, because he even told President Trump, he told him that Ukraine is not a nation. So he feels that since they're not a nation, then he has the right to go in there, take over, kill as much as he wants, and he's done that already. We know the situations in Bucha and other places where mass amounts of civilians have been killed. But the resolve of Ukrainians is unbelievable. I talked to family members that have little kids, and I said, well, how do you get through the day? And they said, well, we don't have a choice. So they're staying put, and they're within rocket range from Belarus or from the Black Sea, and they're just going around their business. I mean, the kids are going to school. One young man, 7 years old, mom said he's going to tennis lessons. They're learning English. Life is semi going on, but with the threats that they could be. Go ahead.
What about their food supply?
Food supplies they have. I mean, there aren't any kind of shortages. I think they're being well supplied from the Western countries.
Okay.
The bordering countries have 100% support for Ukraine because they also understand much better than we do. They suffered under the Soviets. They suffered under the Russians and the current Russians. People say, well, they're not communists. Well, yes, they are. They're still communists.
Absolutely.
They may not use the name, but it's all the same shtick that they're using. So, Poland has been on the forefront of supporting Ukraine. You have Estonia, you have Latvia, Lithuania, you have Romania, and look at Finland. I mean, Finland has stopped being neutral most of its existence to joining NATO. Who would have foreseen that? Putin didn't. And so now he has 800 more miles, and Finland's got a very resourceful military. They don't have a large population like Ukraine, but they've been able to develop their own weapon systems for a long time. And they've proved themselves in World War II against the Russians.
So it appears that a video surfaced about Russian forces beheading a captured Ukrainian soldier. What impact has that had on the populace?
It made them more resilient. It made them more determined that they must win against Russia, that there is no other choice. I mean, look, Russia right now is using ISIS methods, beheading soldiers. I mean, that's unheard of. And it kind of proves to the Ukrainians that, they cannot give up. If they give up, it's the end of them. So they fight on, and this beheading shocked them, of course. But it also made them more stronger and determined that this fight must continue, and they must defeat Russia.
Okay, let's turn to the leaks that are now playing prominently into what's going on over there, and it's actually goes even beyond Ukraine to other allies and their secrets and discussions about them being revealed. It also goes to the intelligence force that we have, and possibly the revelation of some of our intelligence sources inside Russia, which is extremely dangerous for this information to have come out. But I found this article written by Chase Danner in The Intelligencer. It was just posted yesterday. And he writes, a stunning leak of cache of classified Pentagon documents appears to be one of the most significant breaches of U.S. intelligence in decades, purportedly revealing national security secrets regarding Ukraine, Russia, Asia, and the Middle East, as well as details about U.S. espionage methods and the country's spying on adversaries and allies. I mean, this is very alarming. Apparently, they caught the guy, and of course, New York Times is taking credit for all this. Well, they can't decide if the guy should be prosecuted. Well, I think they want to be prosecuted, but many other times when there have been national security leaks, they've wanted to say these guys are whistleblowers. Not right. So, because he goes against the narrative of the Biden administration, and they don't like it. They don't like that now lies that coming out of the Biden administration have been revealed through this through these classified documents. And I just think it's just interesting. So this guy, Jack Teixeira, may have had access to the documents. He was apparently a cyber transport systems specialist, essentially an IT specialist responsible for military communication networks, including their cabling and hubs. In that role, Teixeira would have had a higher level of security clearance because he would have also been tasked with the responsibility for ensuring protection for the networks, a defense official told the Associated Press. Right. So, I mean, first question, I mean, this guy an E3? I mean, we're not talking about 60 documents, apparently. We're talking about he downloaded, printed off, and then took pictures of hundreds of classified documents. I think maybe only 60 of them have been actually posted to a point where the broader public has seen them. But I'm reading in this report from Intelligencer, which is, I will tweet out, it's very comprehensive. Apparently there's hundreds of documents that he downloaded. Now, I don't know what type, I mean, he would have had to cover his tracks. I would think that we'd be sophisticated enough that if you are accessing classified documents, that there's a record of who accessed them and what was downloaded. Mm-hmm. If we can't even assure that, then what the hell's going on?
Well, I think you have a difference of defining security between the, let's say, Republican administrations and Democrat administrations. Democrats have always been kind of leery of security because they said it'll never happen, who really cares, versus on average, the Republicans are more concerned about it. But I think this 21-year-old, it was amazing that he was able to get these secrets out, and he shared it with some kind of an internal chat group that he has to prove to them that he has some kind of influence. And I think they called him OG. And one guy they interviewed, they said he's the leader of the pack. Mm-hmm. And this thing has come out. Now that it has come out, the question is, how much of it is true? How much is it not true? I contacted some of my retired friends from Special Forces, and they said, well, you can't take it one way completely. Some of it could be true, some of it could be false, some could be already manipulated by foreign adversaries. So it's a question of how do you balance this all out? Now, people in Ukraine are extremely concerned about it because they're concerned about security. They're concerned about...
Wait, did you say they aren't concerned about it, or they are?
They are.
Okay, but the Wall Street Journal article and a different one, Kyiv says leaks won't affect its planned offensive. The leaked files have no operational significance. I can't pronounce the guy's name. A Ukrainian presidential advisor said in an interview, they have no impact on the front line or the planning of the general staff.
Well, he may be saying that, but I think they have to look at those leaks and seeing what's specifically is revealed versus what they have planned. And then they have to war game it to see, well, if the Russians have it, then what do we do to counter it? Or do we scrap this plan and develop new plans? That is, I think, it's just common sense, because you can't take the risk of thinking, well, this has been leaked and the Russians will ignore it. I mean, it kind of is reminiscent of the Operation Mincemeat of World War II, in which, the British tried to convince the Nazis that the invasion will be in Calais, not in Normandy, by dumping a body dressed as a British officer.
Right, sure. We had all sorts of fake formations, military assets set up. We intentionally didn't put Patton in charge because they would suspect that he would be leading something like that. So I get it, but things that I'm reading, most people, it appears, believe that this is actually, these are real documents. And,
could be, sure.
Yeah, and the article went on to say that an Intelligencer said it might have compromised various intelligence collection methods and sources, allowing adversaries like Russia and China to evade future U.S. espionage efforts. I mean, this could be extremely damaging. The documents,
it can have far-reaching implications beyond the war in Ukraine. I mean, it can have implications of what happens with Taiwan. It could be implications of what North Korea is thinking about South Korea. I mean, all these things kind of come together into some kind of a fulcrum of boiling over, and people thinking, well, now is there a chance? Why don't we do it?
Well, I am concerned about it because we need to have intelligence sources on the ground. And this says that the Washington Post highlighted how the leaked documents have shed new light on the ways the U.S. conducts espionage. Among other secrets, they appear to reveal where the CIA has recruited human agents privy to the closed-door conversations of world leaders, eavesdropping that shows a Russian mercenary outfit tried to acquire weapons from a NATO ally to use against Ukraine, and what kinds of satellite imagery the United States uses to track Russian forces, including advanced technology that appears barely, if ever, to have been publicly identified. I mean, this could be one of the most devastating leaks in, intelligence history.
Right.
And here's some of the revelations. I just wanted to get this in. I mean, here's some of the things, and this, again, this article really does a really nice job of easily identifying what it is. He says that one of the revelations in the documents is that the U.S. has achieved deep penetration of most Russian security intelligence services. That, I'm sorry, FSB. What is FSB?
As FSB is the successor organization to KGB.
Okay, the FSB accused Russia's defense ministry of obfuscating Russian casualties in Ukraine. So there's a little internal conflict that is revealed in these documents between Russia and their intelligence. The U.S. is spying on top allies, including Zelensky. Okay, that was revealed in them. The U.S. doubts Ukraine's spring offensive will make significant gains. Russia's Wagner Group tried to purchase weapons from Turkey through Mali. That would be a problem. They're a NATO country. Egypt's president secretly planned to send rockets to Russia. That's a problem.
40,000 rockets, I believe.
40,000 rockets to Russia. Russia almost shot down a UK surveillance plane near the Ukraine. Russian intelligence officers claimed the UAE that's United Arab Emirates, wanted to help work against the U.S. and the UK. Russian hackers working with Moscow claimed to have accessed Canada's natural gas infrastructure. I mean, this just goes on and on. I mean, it's wow.
Yeah.
How do we recover from this? And
well, I think if they're smart, I mean, they'll start mitigation efforts. I think the biggest loss is going to be if the Russians find out who's been spying. I mean, those people are not going to be around very long.
Well, this didn't happen under the Trump administration.
Well, I know. Well, this whole thing, as I started the conversation, is the general culture of the two parties towards security is very different. The Democrats have more of a lackadaisical approach, like slow walking aid to Ukraine and then seeing what happens. Before the invasion, Zelensky begged Biden for artillery and A-10s. Biden said no. It's kind of like, and then when they attack, it's kind of like drip, drip, drip coming in. So you're right. This is one of the things that would never have happened under President Trump. President Trump, on one hand, may have praised Putin, telling him he's smart, but on the other hand, I mean, he warned him. I mean, don't attack Ukraine, and Putin didn't. For 4 years. So Ukraine had 4 extra years to prep. But our security services under Trump knew that the danger from Russia was always there, and that's why after 2014, when Putin took over Crimea and the 2 eastern provinces, that's when Ukraine got very serious. They knew that Clinton's word didn't mean anything in the Budapest memorandum. And they finally stood up to say, look, it's going to happen again, and time to get ready. And that's why when Trump came in, he gave him those javelins.
So I was reading another piece, and I apologize. I do not remember where I read this piece, but it's absolutely true. First of all, you had President Clinton come out and apologize.
Right. Exactly.
He absolutely apologized for his decision to basically tell Ukraine to give up their nuclear weapons. He absolutely apologized for that. And then another piece came out saying, look, this is Obama's war. This is Obama's war because he never arrested the aggression when they first took over Crimea in 2014. Exactly. This is Obama's war. Now, it's also important to mention what have been the other huge intelligence leaks that we have seen. Ed Snowden and Julian Assange. Both of those leaks again, during the Obama administration.
Right.
These guys have a problem keeping our secrets secret.
Well, they also have within the ideology of their party, they have this feeling that they must share. And I don't know if you remember Madeleine Albright.
Yes, yes.
Who said, it's not fair that the United States is a superpower. It's just not fair. And I think President Trump...
Who else would you want to be a superpower? I'm sorry.
Well, I think they wanted to make sure Russia and China had the superpower status because it's not fair to be the big guy in the schoolyard. So this kind of philosophy permeates their ideological leanings, and that's why you have them kind of being wishy-washy on things. That's why you have them, sending the FBI after parents that are protesting educational standards in schools. I mean, this is all part and package of it. And when he started sending supplies to Ukraine, that was great. I mean, it's very nice. But boy, did it go in slow.
Yes.
And people in Ukraine felt, look, you don't have boots on the ground. We're fighting the war. Just give us what we need. But it seems like many people felt, oh, well, we don't want to get involved because it's going to be like Afghanistan. And Afghanistan is day-and-night difference. I mean, Afghanistan was a precursor of the way we left, giving, Putin the green light.
Oh, no doubt about it. Plus, I mean, Afghanistan should have been a limited conflict. We should have gone in, done the retaliation that we did, stayed just long enough to give them the point, and then gotten back out. I mean, that's what we should have done. And instead, we spent 20 years there, and it was a total debacle.
We did. It was too long. We didn't have an exit strategy, but people don't want to talk about the fact that at the end of President Trump's presidency, we had 2,500 troops there. Yeah. Taliban was not killing Americans.
Right.
And he said, we're getting out.
Yeah.
But President Trump would have done it correctly. We would not have left $85 billion of weapons to the Taliban.
That are now getting sold across to other countries. Okay, so hey, listen, we're going a little bit long here. I really appreciate your update here on Ukraine. We're going to check back in with you as things develop. I mean, honestly, do remember though? Let's remind people when this all started out, what our general said, what the U.S. top general said. Oh, this will all be over in 8 days. Remember that?
Yeah, I think he said 72 hours, but it could have been 8 days.
Yeah, they all thought this was going to be, and it's
not. They all said that.
Yes, they all said that. And so the Ukrainian people have really put great effort into defeating this enemy, an enemy of all of us at this point.
Right.
What's concerning is that this war is not just a regional conflict. This is now expanding. And it's very concerning when we see maybe not allies, but people that we have agreements with, Egypt, UAE, when we see them start, Turkey, getting enticed to getting into this war. That is very concerning. That goes beyond a regional war, and we need better leaders at the top figuring how do we get out of this.
You're right.
Yep.
Everything has a domino effect. I mean, China's looking to see how the war in Ukraine goes and when to attack Taiwan. You have France, who is now sucking up to China. It's not good.
Nope. All right. We're going to leave it there. Thank you so much for coming on. The Real
Thank
Story
you,
with Jeannie Ives. Thank you so much, Colonel. We appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Have a great day.